In a quiet village surrounded by rolling hills and tall, whispering trees, there lived an old woman named Gogo Nomvula. To the villagers, she seemed like any ordinary grandmother, her back slightly bent, her face wrinkled by years of sun, her head wrapped in colorful scarves. She lived with her 3 grandchildren, 2 boys, Kobelo and Temsanka, and a girl named Laroto, who was only 10 years old. But Gogo Nomvula was no ordinary grandmother. She carried a secret as dark as midnight, one that the villagers never suspected. Her house stood at the far end of the village, a little apart from the others. It was a big yard, strangely neat and always filled with abundance. Her garden was overflowing with vegetables, pumpkins as big as water pots, spinach leaves wider than plates, sweet potatoes buried in rich soil, and maize stalks that reached higher than the fence. Her fruit trees bore mangoes, oranges, and bananas all year round, while others struggled to grow even a few. Even more strange, the yard was always spotless, the water tanks were always full, and every morning there was delicious food already cooked. The villagers sometimes wondered how an old woman could do so much, but whenever they asked, she simply smiled and said, "Oh, God is kind." But the truth was far from God's work. Whenever there was a funeral in the village, Gogo Nomvula was always present. She sat at the back, wrapped in her shawl, her eyes closed as though in mourning. But she was not praying. She was waiting. For when night came and the mourners left, she returned quietly to the graveyard. With charms made of ash, herbs, and bones, she whispered ancient chants. Slowly, the spirits of the newly buried would rise, confused and obedient. She would take them to her yard, and there they became her workers. Invisible to ordinary eyes, they swept her compound, watered her garden, cooked her food, and even filled her tanks with water carried from the river. The dead became her servants. The villagers saw her flourishing and admired her. Little did they know their dead were serving her in silence. Her grandchildren lived happily but strangely. Kobelo, the eldest, loved playing football in the dusty fields. Temsanka, the middle child, liked to carve toys from wood. But Laroto, the youngest, was curious and sharp-eyed. She noticed things her brothers ignored. Like how the house always smelled of food though no one cooked. Or how the floor was polished though they never swept. Or how Gogo always warned them never to open the door at the end of the passage. One evening, Laroto asked, "Gogo, why don't we ever do chores like other children? My friends fetch water, they sweep, they weed the garden. But we just eat and play." Her grandmother looked at her with a long, quiet stare and finally said, "One day, you will understand. But for now, stay away from that door." The forbidden door haunted Laroto's thoughts. It was a plain wooden door, always locked, at the far end of the passage. At night, when the moonlight streamed through the cracks of the house, she thought she heard whispers and footsteps behind it. "Maybe there are people inside," she whispered to her brothers. Kobelo laughed. "You are imagining things. Gogo just doesn't want us to break her jars." But Temsanka sometimes frowned and admitted, "At night, I also hear noises." The 3 children argued, but Gogo never explained. She only tightened her rules: stay away from that door. One year, after many funerals in the village, the garden grew even more abundant, and the villagers marveled. But whispers also began. Families noticed strange things. At night, some said they heard footsteps near Gogo's yard. Some said they saw shadows moving though no one was outside. One evening, after supper, Gogo Nomvula called her grandchildren. They sat around her as the fire burned low, and her voice was heavy. "My children," she said, "you are old enough to know the truth. You wonder why our house is always full, why our garden grows, why you do not work. The truth is," she paused, her eyes glinting, "I am a witch. I steal the spirits of the dead. The children gasped. Yes, she continued. When there is a funeral, I collect the spirit at night. They work for me, they sweep, they cook, they fill our water, they make the garden flourish. That is why you must never open the forbidden door. The spirits are there. Silence filled the room. Lorato's heart pounded. She remembered her friend Nelady, whose aunt had died last month. Nelady always looked sad, saying she felt her aunt's presence at night, restless and uneasy. Could it be because her aunt's spirit was trapped here? Lorato could not sleep that night. She thought of her grandmother's words. She thought of her friend's aunt. The forbidden door seemed to call to her. One night, when the moon was bright, Lorato tiptoed through the passage. She pressed her ear against the door. She heard whispers, soft singing, and the sound of sweeping. Her blood turned cold. The next day, she told her friend Nelady, I think your aunt's spirit is in my grandmother's house. She said she keeps the dead. Nelady's eyes widened in fear and grief. Then I must tell my family. That evening, Nelady's family gathered, and Nelady told them what Lorato had said. The news spread quickly through the village like wildfire. By morning, everyone was talking. Gogo Nomvula is a witch. She steals the dead. No wonder her garden is full while ours fail. My brother's spirit must be in her yard. Anger rose in the hearts of the people. They remembered how she always attended funerals. They remembered the strange shadows. Now everything made sense. A crowd gathered, drums beating, voices shouting. They stormed to Gogo Nomvula's house. Nomvula. The chief's voice boomed. Is it true you have stolen the spirits of our dead? The old woman stood in her yard, her grandchildren behind her, trembling. For the first time, she looked old and powerless. She tried to deny, but the people pushed forward. Lorato, tears in her eyes, whispered, It's true, Gogo. I told them. I'm sorry, but I had to. Nomvula's eyes filled with both fury and sorrow. She raised her hands, but the villagers shouted, Witch! Witch! Give us back our dead! They pushed open the forbidden door. Inside, the room was dark, but as the villagers looked, they saw faint ghostly shapes, men, women, children, moving like shadows. Some cried out, others stared with empty eyes. The villagers wailed in anger and grief. The chief stepped forward. Nomvula, you are banished. You have robbed us of peace. You have turned our loved ones into slaves. Leave this village, and never return. The people chased her out, throwing stones and ashes at her feet. The grandchildren clung together, crying, as their grandmother disappeared down the dusty road, her bundle on her back, her figure swallowed by the horizon. The spirits were released that night. Families felt the return of their loved ones' presence, peaceful at last. The village rejoiced, though sadness lingered.